We're live. Welcome to a critique the community. Today we're going to be critiquing minimalistic photos. And if you want to go to fstoppers.com/contests, you can join the next critique. Did you make one?
I did.
And what is it?
Do you know what it is?
No.
It's uncomfortable. So it could be like disturbing. It could be like social, like skydiving. I don't want to give you too many ideas, but it could be whatever you want. I do ask, don't put any gore or like hardcore pornography because you will not get picked if you do that. But if you have any images that are kind of,
I like how you added hardcore pornography.
Yeah, softcore is
standard porn's
if you,
fine.
I mean, you might find softcore uncomfortable. Kind of came from this idea that when I had my 30th birthday party, David or somebody said, hey, let's do like a photo thing where everyone brings like their most, I think he called it like disturbing image. Controversial, that's what it was. Most controversial image. And everyone printed images and put it in this bar.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then I took a picture of these people making out, which is the image that I use as the feature image for this one.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of based on that. It doesn't have to be controversial, but it just needs to be uncomfortable, whatever that means.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and look at this first shot here. This is the highest rated image. And
This is it?
I believe.
What are we looking at? Minimalistic?
Minimal photos, yeah.
Minimal.
What do you think of this shot?
It's kind of cool. I like it.
I'm trying to figure out, like,
What's going on?
what is it? Is it real? Is it photoshopped? I'm pulling up the images right now on F-Stoppers. Let's see what they have to say about it.
I mean, it looks like some kind of, acrylic pool that spans 2 towers.
I mean,
and they're down below, shooting up or something.
Here we go. This is a new glass sky pool in London. The pool is suspended between 2 skyscrapers 115 feet above the ground. I had to wait for the perfect cloud formation around noon to pull this off. I set up my composition and put my camera on a tripod with a 70-200 looking up at the pool. I triggered the continuous shooting mode, which captured over 50 poses. I then selected the best pose. Also, since the dynamic range is very high, shooting against the sun, I had to shoot different exposures of the sky and pool, which were merged in post with the swimmer. Maybe that's why it feels a little fakey to me. But
So wait, the swimmer is not real?
he just said he had to. He said I had to shoot different exposures of the sky and pool, which were merged in post with the swimmer.
The way that's written, it's kind of like, is it manipulated for the composition and the sky and the pool, but the swimmer's fake? I want to know more about the swimmer, because that seems like, is this pool open to the public? Did you have to wait till no one was there? Did you hire a swimmer?
I know. Is this a model or not? I am curious myself. All right, are you ready to rate this?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
I'm between a 3 and a 4.
I'm gonna go 4. I mean, this is such a unique image. I also like the fact that they did the. They made it a little diagonal.
Yeah, it's not totally straight on.
I keep going back and forth and thinking, would I prefer this to be perfectly perpendicular? But I don't know. Having it, I kind of like that too.
I keep thinking if you zoom in, like this looks like a Netflix thumbnail for a movie or something. Did you ever see Icarus, the documentary on? Maybe I feel like I just talked about this with somebody. There's like a guy who's looking in the doping, and it leads into this whole investigation of the Olympics and everything, or almost like a Westworld type of image. Like, sure. I think it's really cool, and I love the effect of the mosaic from the water. Like the middle of the frame's blurry.
Well, congratulations, Ali. You won a free tutorial from fstoppers.com/store. Send me a private message on Fstoppers and let me know which tutorial you would like. Do you want to pick a number, 2 through 10?
Let's do 7.
All right, you're not gonna remember. You're not gonna remember when we get there, and it's gonna be a problem.
All right, this is the second image here.
Next up. Now, what do you think this is?
Dude, this looks like... what was the Apple II GS when you got like clip art or something, and maybe it's better than that. It's like Windows 95 or something, but this. I mean, the plane looks strange, right? It's one of those gliders, I assume, because it doesn't look like a normal type of plane. And what is falling? I don't know what's on there. It's like...
So
it doesn't look military. It looks like they're dropping a flare or something. But
This-
is this a model? This is like...
This image was taken by Carl Victor. He says the glider is released from a towing cable, and the cable falls to the ground with a parachute.
Ah, that would make sense, yeah. So there's a little string way down here on the bottom you can barely see. That's connected to another plane,
Yeah, I guess so.
prop plane or something that
Yeah.
pulls the glider, gets it to altitude, and then it drops.
Let's go full screen for everybody.
Have you seen the videos on how... Did I have this conversation with you or with Kristen? It was how do planes, the planes that have the signage on the back, how do those take off and get the signs to flop, to not flop around and stay? Have you?
I don't know if I saw that or not.
They do
Sounds
something
familiar.
They do something similar where they have a plane that takes off and it's got like 100 yards of rope on the back with this like hook. Looks like something out of Batman, like one of those 3-prong hooks, like a fishing lure. And then it takes off and then it does this huge dip right by a sign, and the hook grabs the sign and like pulls it up, and then
What?
it is the craziest thing, and it kind of...
I don't think I've seen that. I think I've seen them where they literally take off with the sign dragging.
No, because I believe, if I
They
remember
don't.
correctly...
They can't get enough momentum or something.
Yeah, and you don't want the sign to drag, and you don't want it to like catch something and rip. So the plane has full velocity. It dips down, and then they have like this kind of like a field goal post where the hook has to go. It's crazy. Look,
I have not seen that. I gotta watch that. All right, let's rate this. 3, 2, 1. I'm going 4, baby. You're going 2. I don't know. I like this, and certainly it's minimalistic. I mean, if anything followed the rules, this one certainly did.
So let me clarify my 2 here, because this is the type of image that you would see in the MoMA, right? And you'd go in there and it's like, oh my gosh, this is a $2 million piece of work.
I don't know that I would agree with that. I could see this image being in National Geographic or something.
It just seems so simple and almost like they always say, if you have to explain a photograph, then it's not a good photo, which I don't think I agree with. This image is just so strange and simple that if you were scrolling through a portfolio, would you stop on this and be like, whoa, that's really cool? And maybe if you had a portfolio full of minimalistic stuff. The other image was minimalistic, if that's the theme we made up. I feel like that image could live in quite a few different portfolios and be a respectable image. This, I'm not saying it's not respectable, it's just so simple and strange that it feels like this was made in, it's like an illustration. Or
I agree. That's, I think, why I like it. Diego in the chat says, I was just watching your Critique the Community, episode 35, on minimalistic photos from 2018.
We've already done this one?
That's what I said. I thought I remember doing this before, but it was 3 years ago.
Wow.
That's fun.
And I guess we numbered it, unless Diego is insane and just knows every episode number.
I think we used to number them. All right, next up.
Man, we're probably over 100 episodes of this.
Probably.
All right. Okay.
We need a little full screen action going on here. So, what's interesting about shots like this, and I have not read the explanation of this yet, but, this could be done in Photoshop with 2 diagonal lines,
Maybe a gradient of some sort, just to get the background a little more interesting.
Fleeting Pictures took this. He said it was taken with the telephoto lens. The person/cyclist was being framed by part of the bridge. I used spot metering to get the shot and increase the contrast a bit to get rid of small distractions and details in Lightroom.
I'm still trying to imagine what the black thickness is. Like that is a huge part of a bridge.
Guess.
I could invert this and know and understand there's like a cable where the sky is and that would be black, but for the left and the right to be this black, it's like that concrete or whatever that is got to be huge.
Well, he said he also increased the contrast a bit.
What's interesting is it's really hard to tell it's a cyclist. I guess if you really zoom in, you can start to see
like somebody riding on a hover-round.
I was thinking it was like somebody studying on a pew or a desk or something.
All right, let's rate this. 3, 2, 1. 3 stars. We agree. I dig it. I think it could be way better if that person was doing something a little bit more interesting. Even if they were leaning up against that railing and just kind of looking out into the distance, I think that would be more interesting. But
this would be really cool to go back to this location and plan the activity. Maybe there's not a walking path there and you're literally taking a picture of somebody in traffic, but I think if somebody was doing a skateboard trick or a handstand or what was that sport where people parkour? Is that it? Where they
parkour.
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 What the hell?
Something where somebody's jumping off the edge and looking really graphic. I think that could be.
I mean, parkour makes all the images better. All right, next.
Definitely parkour.
So this image is by Pratik Person or Pearson,
okay.
And
Man.
this is a 10-second exposure with the sensor cover on. ISO 25,600. Hardly any
more minimalistic than that.
Yeah, well, I think he says it's impossible to get any more minimalistic than this.
Let me zoom in. Is there noise on this? Yeah, I see. I don't know if you.
There is noise. When he uploaded this, I thought for sure he just uploaded a black image, but no, this is actually a long exposure from his camera.
Do you think it suffers from only being 10 seconds?
Yeah, if it was 20 seconds, I think it would be
like the noise and like
5 stars for sure.
When I look at this, like I don't see any hot pixels or any light leaks from the cap or anything, which I think is testament how simple this is. But I kind of want some of that. I want just a little bit of light leakage or something, or some hot pixels, maybe some of those like green pixels.
the green, neon green and magenta pixels that show up.
Do you think, like the last image, that this was added contrast and Lightroom?
It's hard to tell how much post was done on this. But the reason why I added this to the critique is because when I was in college, I showed up to an art history class and I had forgotten to do my homework. And my homework was I had to make a collage using trash.
Yeah.
And then we had to present our trash collage in front of the class. And so everybody presented. And when I walked up, I just grabbed a blank sheet of paper out of my notebook and put it up on the board. And then I just talked about it for like 5 minutes about how it represents loneliness and depression and all these things. Yeah. And I got a B. And my friend who actually did the project got a C. So I've never lived that one down. And so Patrick, congratulations, you made the critique, but obviously this is horrible. I'm not going to give you a B. I give this 1 star.
What number are we on?
Exactly.
Exactly. Do you know what number we are on? Could you figure out what number we're on?
You have to.
Well, I mean, I could probably look here, but then I'm going to ruin the whole critique.
Well, you could go backwards and count.
I was just in the little story time. I was just at the Vatican, and I was doing the tours and looking at all these Raphael paintings that are in these rooms that used to be, I guess, bedrooms of the Pope, and now it's a museum. And I'm looking at this. I wish I could remember the painting. It's called something like Athens, like a... I can't remember the name of it, but it's a famous painting that Raphael did. It's in the Vatican. And I'm looking at it, and there's all this stuff going on, and they're talking about, Raphael painted himself in this corner. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusions album cover right there. It's those two people. It's this guy sitting down with a notebook, and he's writing, right? And I instantly recognize it, and I'm like, that's interesting. I got to look up the story here. So I look it up, and basically Axl Rose, the lead singer of Guns N' Roses, he went into a studio and found an art gallery. He finds this painting of this, but it's been turned into like a little bit more graphic art. You know, the contrast and stuff's been boosted, and maybe like the lines have been embossed or something. So he goes to the artist and winds up paying a lot of money to use this as the album cover. But it is literally a ripoff of the Raphael painting. And in this Wikipedia or whatever story I was reading about was saying that he could have used that artwork, I think, for free because it's in the public domain because it's 500 years old or something. But instead, he went to, what's that photographer? It's like he takes photos of things on Instagram. Is it Richard Price?
I don't know.
And then that copy, whatever the original picture was, this artist is like that. It's a total scam. You know, and I don't know why the black image reminded me of this, but it was just strange to see like an amazing painting that then literally was just copied and contrast was turned up. And then it becomes the album cover for 2 albums that were, I think it was the only time the album on Billboard was 1 and 2 by the same artist. And it, you know, sells millions of copies, and they paid tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to use this artwork from this guy. But the whole time,
it's almost identical to the original. I need to.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's like the photo is the painting, the cover is the painting, but then just part of it they've stylized just slightly, slightly. But when you see it, if you know that album cover, you're like, oh, that's that painting right there. And it's just a strange story where I was like, how did that guy not get sued? And because there's another weird story about the Sistine Chapel where, like, I think they don't own the copyright. The Vatican doesn't own the copyright of the Sistine Chapel because they've paid to have it restored by Chinese artists that I believe, do you remember the story? Did they go over it with actual paint? And, like, they repainted over it to make it more vibrant?
I cleaned the smoke off of it.
That's what they say. But I thought there was more to it than that. I thought they actually applied something and it might be more vibrant than it ever was before. And then they added LED lights and stuff. And anyway, the estate doesn't own the copyright to this work anymore because it was restored by a new firm that owns the copyright to the restoration. Something like that. I need to look up the story, but it's kind of an interesting copyright article. All right, here we go. Speaking of the Vatican, this looks kind of religious in some way, right?
A little bit. This was taken by Mary Bell, and this is a self-portrait of her, and all the figures are her. It's a composite, and it was using natural window light. Are you ready to rate this?
I am.
3, 2, 1.
I'm going 3, but
I'm
at least
between a 3 and a 4.
On this iPad, there's like some really weird, like,
funny
haloing, and it looks like you can see where she hasn't cut out the figures, and maybe the black point should be. It's like the black point should be pulled in tighter, but then lifted so that it gives this matte look. But when you zoom in, you'll probably never be able to see this. There's these weird.
I can't see it from here.
There's these weird little halos and stuff. So it's like the Photoshop's a little sloppy. But the execution, the image, the one is really good. The one thing that kind of bothers me is just her clothes in the middle. Again, you probably can't see this on our screen. I don't know if you want to look at this, but it's just kind of like, it just looks like the styling is a little...
Oh, I see.
You just see a black t-shirt with some boring black pants, and they're all wrinkled. If there was a way to Photoshop that or clean up the wardrobe a little bit more, it might feel...
3 stars is the correct answer then. It shouldn't be a 4, but with a little bit more time in Photoshop, I think it's cool. Certainly interesting. Catches your eye. Nice lighting. Interesting lipstick.
I was just talking about, you know, the Vatican. On this trip to Italy, I started watching this documentary on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Sons of Sam. Are you familiar with the Son of Sam killer in New York? You've heard of Son of Sam, right? Sure. It's like this serial killer who kills like 6 or 10 people, something like that in New York. Well, this documentary goes on. I had no idea this was a thing. This documentary goes and it starts like diving deep into like maybe these murders weren't committed by this one guy, and instead he was part of this occult, worships the devil, and that multiple people pulled off all of these murders in New York because the sketch artists, like when there's a few people that survive these shootings, when they give the report to the investigators and they draw up sketches, every one of these sketches looks completely different. But then they start tracing it back, and it's like the killer is friends with all of these other people that look exactly like these other drawings. And so I'm only halfway through it, so I don't exactly know how it's going to like line up, but Sons of Sam, it's pretty wild.
It's good?
I really like it because it starts to sound so over the top, like this can't be real. This feels like a modern documentary where they're making some crazy allegation of a murder that happened 40 years ago. But then you start reading about it online and you're like, no, in the 70s and 80s, the media knew about this, but the police were kind of covering it up. It's just a really interesting.
I do love some murder documentaries. I'll have to check it out. Next up.
Is this Nambia? Is that where this is?
Yes,
I don't know that I know where Nambia is. I'm guessing it's like Africa?
Thought it was somewhere in Africa. This was also taken by Ali, the guy who took the highest rated image. I'm just now noticing that. Yeah, I think we've seen this image before, but it looks even more like a cartoon.
There's a really famous photograph of this that it looks like graphic art. It looks like clip art or painting or, something that was made in like, Photoshop, or not Photoshop, but like Microsoft Paint or something.
Yeah.
But it's the perspective and the lighting that happens in this desert. It can create this really strange contrast that doesn't look like a real photographic image. I mean, even if you zoom into this, can you tell some of these weird little patterns? It almost looks like a filter.
Yeah.
Like the paper filter.
Yeah.
Has been applied to it. Overlay.
Let's rate it. 3, 2, 1. Going 3 stars on this one. And like maybe if I had never seen this before, I'd give it 4 stars, but I've seen images taken of this exact location a few times now, and this is cool, but I don't know that this is better than all the other ones I've seen.
Yeah, I think I feel exactly the same way about it.
Well, I believe the next one is number 7.
Yeah?
Maybe. I don't know.
Oh.
So
now, this immediately makes me think of something. You know what this makes me think of?
No, what's that?
The critique that we did with Mike Kelly, where half the images were images from our Instagram, and we are rating them whether or not they're like good or bad images. And then the other half were classic Ansel Adams photos. And this image makes me wonder if this is like some crazy crop on a photo that I've taken on like Facebook, and you're like, because you were saying something like, oh dude, I got the critique already, don't worry about it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I see why you're saying that. But in the last critique, we brought up live on the air, like, do people want to see bad images, or do you like just the best images? And people were like, no, we want to see a range of images. So
they want to have something to like look at and understand where you could go.
Well, people...
When you see perfection, when you see a 3, 4... I don't even know if we have 5-star images very often, but you just think, like, that's unachievable to me.
Well, a lot of people argue, they're like, why don't you critique 1-star images? And I always say, because in many cases, there's nothing to be said, right? So here we are in this situation right now where we, it's like, I don't know what you can say about this, but here's the funny thing is, so Mark Holden took this, and he followed directions by writing something in the description. It was horrible. He said, just an old donkey in the shade at noon. Then the image got downvoted into oblivion, and nobody wrote any comments, but he wrote a comment, and he says, yes, I know it's a snapshot with no work done. I just like it this way. So this was literally the lowest rated image in the entire critique.
Now, if we crop it a little bit, is there any redeeming qualities of this?
That's incredible.
I mean, that looks like something that could be printed and put in like a Mexican restaurant here in Puerto Rico.
Well,
or something.
That could be true, but just because it could be doesn't mean it should be.
You put this like on the male bathroom door, it represents like...
Yeah, so we're both going to give this 1 star. And then now, give this a critique. What could he have done better?
I think you could wait for better lighting, don't shoot at noon. I think he acknowledges that. Also, don't shoot out of like your moving car. He obviously used a fast shutter. And this camera.
I mean, this has to be shot on a phone, right? Like this looks like it was taken with a phone from 10 years ago. This doesn't even look like a modern phone.
How does you ever think of like how phrases came about? Like what's the origins of that crazy phrase?
Sure.
One of the phrases is always like shot on a potato, right? Isn't that the phrase? Or shot with a potato, or potato quality.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? What is the potato?
I just read that online forever. It's just people talking about, maybe it started, you know how you can make a potato battery with like you put the 2 electrodes in there and it will power something? I think maybe that could be where it stemmed from, where they're just like, the potato's got a little bit of something, but it's horrible in every way. And then people started explaining all electronics.
Did you just make that up on the spot?
Well, I don't know. I've heard everybody compare electronics to potatoes for so long online.
Yeah, I could see that. I was thinking maybe when you slice a potato, it's like it has very little color. It's just like this white-yellow color.
Oh,
and it has no detail. So. It's just like a potato. I don't think that's right either.
But you're thinking that people are just calling cameras potatoes, but people will talk about like graphics cards or whatever, and those are potatoes.
I've always heard it with like shot on a potato or shot with a potato.
Yeah.
It's always dealing with image quality.
Yeah.
But you're saying like the first Atari was made.
People use it in other ways. Yeah.
But yeah.
All right.
Well, congratulations.
Oh yeah, he won.
You can get a tutorial. Yeah. So I don't know which genre of photography would be best looking at this, but we did just release the well-rounded photographer.
Yeah.
That has 8. You like that segue?
That's true. I mean, yeah, it'll help you in all genres. Mark, send me a private message on fstoppers.com. Let me know which tutorial you want from fstoppers.com/store.
And the lowest image, who knows, could always win. They just
Anything's
did.
possible.
And it's not I picked 7 was just random.
You did.
So, there we go.
Let's go a little full screen on this bad boy here. So this image was taken by Andreas Glacier, and the picture was taken over a bridge in Utsund in central Sweden, obviously with his drone. I like it, and I'm kind of curious.
Like what the street's made out of, or what
the water's made out of. Why is it so black?
See, I think that's some like dodging and burning, or like contrast adjustment or something.
Really?
I'm wondering if the middle lane is like a shadow of like a suspension bridge, and then there's these cables coming off of it. I don't know if you'll be able to see this online, but there's like some really interesting detail. Like it almost looks like a film strip. It's got these weird highlights on the top, but then it's got a lot of really interesting, if you zoom out, it almost starts to look like a cable or a guitar string, or, it's got this really interesting quality to it that I think helps make this image what it is. Yeah. If it was just a dirt road or something, it wouldn't have the same effect. Are you ready to rate this?
I think so. 3, 2, 1.
3, solid.
3 stars. Like, I don't really know what you do with this image, but if you had a portfolio of drone shots, I think it's cool.
I'd like to see something composited in and just make it look like a movie poster or something. I don't know that you can do that and just put it on your website, but I feel like we have a friend, David's wife's an author.
Yes.
And when you look at her book covers, well, what's one of her books that people might know?
Wolf by Wolf?
Wolf by Wolf.
Okay.
And it has stuff like this, where it'll be like the motorcycle guy going across some cool bridge, but then it'll have a map overlay with it. And then it also has like the Soviet Union flag. It's just this composite to where it's not photography.
So you want him to take his photography and turn it into graphic design?
Maybe. I mean, there's something about this that's just so simple that...
That was the genre of the critique. Next up.
Touche.
This one was pretty interesting to me. This was taken by Jonathan Cynical. And he said he took this image with a salad bowl and 2 speed lights. He used a white salad bowl because he wanted a better reflection in order to get something more realistic. And that's basically all he says about it.
So this is a white salad bowl filled to the rim?
I don't know.
And it's like that edge right there is the white.
Maybe.
Let me see.
And then you just slowly start dripping drips of water and you keep taking shots, I guess.
Yeah, these shots like this with the drops of water never really, like, they're cool when you first see them, you know. When you first pick up a camera and you start looking at really crazy technical images. But usually they're like such crazy colors and they're just they leave little to the imagination. You're just like, oh, okay, this is strange, right?
Yeah.
This one, I don't know if it's like that curvature or it's the blue colors or the single drop, but
it feels like Earth in
space.
space.
It gives, there's just a little bit more interest in an image like this to me personally.
Let's rate it. 3, 2, 1. I'm in between a 3 and a 4. I'm going 3. I don't know. I mean, like you said, it's certainly more interesting than other drip photography I've seen. I think it's super cool. Final shot?
Before we go to the final shot, did you watch the video that I sent you?
What'd you send me?
Okay, good. You didn't see it. So I'm at Costco today, and I don't know if this made the behind the scenes with Elia Licardi, but when we were in New Zealand, there was this potato chip that I was obsessed with.
Oh, you found it.
And I'm at Costco, and I'm looking, and I see the Red Rock Deli.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's, you know, of course, it's a Costco-sized bag of chips. And it's this, I've seen this before at Target, but it's never been the sweet chili sour cream.
Let me try this.
And so I find this, and I send a video to you and Elia, because I had Elia, he mailed me like 10 bags of these once back to the United States.
Yeah.
And half of them were all popped. And then I've tried them, and I'm like, I don't know if this is lacking seasoning. This is kind of like a fairly boring chip now. But then there in New Zealand, I was like, this is one of the top 10 potato chips I've ever had. I would put this up there with Zapp's. I'd put this up there with a regular like Lay's sour cream and onion. I really like the garden variety sun chip. That's like probably one of my all-time favorites. This was like, oh my gosh, this chip's amazing.
Yeah.
And I find it today in Puerto Rico.
I always have these experiences with wine. You know, you're at a fancy restaurant in some cool place, and you drink a wine, and you're like, wow, I love this wine. And then I take a note, and then I'll order the wine later or whatever, and I'll drink it 6 months later, a year later, and I'm like, it tastes just like wine now. I
never got into wine, but it seems like, you know, I like bourbons, right? And this is so consistent. Now, there's some people, you know, if you get the single barrel and stuff, like that one barrel might be slightly unique. But if you get a normal bottle of whiskey, it's been mixed with so many barrels that it's kind of consistent, right?
Okay.
Jack Daniels is always going to taste like Jack Daniels. Maker's Mark's always going to taste like Maker's Mark. But with wine, it seems like you're never really trying to find the one bottle that you love. It's the journey of experiencing so many different flavors, and you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that the bottles too age and stuff differently. I know, like,
right. That's what I feel like.
They definitely age differently when they're in like barrels and stuff. But I don't know enough about wine. Once they're in the bottles can become worth a lot as they age in the bottle, right?
Yeah, but then the different years and the different amount of rain and everything. You would think whiskey would be the same, but I don't know that it is. But
I don't think that it is. I think like all those variations in the average bottle
Yeah.
are all mixed together, and then you lose those specific qualities. But a wine, the limited knowledge I know, is you might love a 1991 bottle because something unique happened that year, but then bottle by bottle, like, it just seems like you'll never experience the same taste again. But if you have like beer or something, you're like, oh, like if you love Pepsi, what is this crap? Pepsi Black. Every Pepsi Black is going to taste the exact same.
Pepsi Black in my life.
I don't know who bought this.
All right, let's wrap this up.
All right, here we go. Last image.
I always see these minimalistic photos height of skyscrapers, and I always wonder to myself, like, where the heck is this? So this image was taken by Paul Wang Goslin, and he said, a focus on the first city tower in Houston, Texas. Used his kit gear, APS-C, with a 55 200mm kit lens. Shot in 2018. And, yeah, so it's real. It's not like this is CGI or anything.
That's pretty wild. I mean, maybe there's a lot of buildings throughout the world that if you shot them with the right lighting and then converted them to black and white, you'd get a similar effect. But doesn't this look strangely, like, perfect?
It does.
Ready?
Yes. 3 stars. Sorry, I'm trying to read and...
There's an element of this that makes me want to give it a 4-star, but I wonder if...
I mean...
This is just too common? Like, could you do this with a lot of images? Or is this really pretty interesting? I don't know. This is so strange.
He says this is one of the few pictures he printed and decorated his home with it. And I agree. You know, I always say this, like, I don't know that I want pretty pictures hung on my, I think somebody's here at the house. I don't want pretty pictures hung in my house, but this sort of thing, it just kind of feels like modern art. I think somebody is here to drop stuff off, so I'm sorry, guys. We got to call it.
If you want to do the next critique and uncomfortable as the theme, head over to fstoppers.com/it's contests with an S, right?
Correct.
I never know that. I'm always like, is it contest or contests?
All right, guys. We will see you soon. Bye.